So the question is that there are KiPs that are rebellious in nature, smoking some weed, they're off the derech, and they're just, going through their teenagehood, and then there are some people who are doing that also, but they have mental illness, and should they be treated the same? Same prescription for everybody. What about mental illness? Short question, long answer. I'm going to try to be makatzer and still come across with a proper response. First of all, we have a tremendous, long list of parents who testified and will continue to testify that their children were diagnosed with mental illness, everything up to schizophrenia. And means, when I say that, I mean ADD, ADHD, ODD, BPD, bipolar included, which is the schwer, but not schizophrenia, which I'm going to put that as a suffix. But until then, all kinds of stuff, who have testified consistently that approximately 2 to 3 years after doing TP properly, effectively, that it turns out that the psychiatrist consistently said, we don't know what happened, but it's gone. We had a girl here who was diagnosed, a wealthy family, diagnosed by 4 top psychiatrists. I can give you their names. Bipolar, 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 bipolar. And they say bipolar is not something, it's a fact. It's like a broken arm. It's a fact. It's physical, right? And you can meet the mom. I'll give you her phone number. She was at the Shabbaton, and after 2.5 years, we don't know what happened. All the symptoms are gone. No medication. It's now 2 years or 3 years after that story. She's fine. There is no medication for anything. Where did it go? So my first answer to you is that children who are raped and molested and traumatized as children could appear to behave in a way that looks like mental illness. And we've spoken about that today, about the ADD and the ADHD kids, who they're going to look like something. And if it's severe trauma that's inside of them, and then they weren't understood, and then the whole world turned on them and thought that they're bad, lazy, or stupid, and they were misunderstood and mistreated, it can break your brain that it really looks like bipolar. And we had that beautiful, amazing article from Dr. Reggie Melrose that we learned today, that it's not bipolar, it's trauma, because they're going to look like different things. So the first answer is, I don't know what percentage of kids that look like they have mental illness really have mental illness. Many to most of our kids don't have mental illness. And I'm talking about large numbers. And I've said this publicly, and I've gotten tremendous flack from psychiatrists and the psychology world. Don't say that. You sound like a nutcase. And I'm saying, I'm not saying anything. I'm giving you feedback. FYI, out of 300 plus families, many kids had many diagnoses that are gone with TP. So either the diagnosis was wrong originally, which is what Melrose says, or we healed it the same as I don't know what. I don't know what. I don't have to know what. It's not my job. But we've done an experiment here that has proven over and over and over again that so far, out of 300 plus, and I take bad cases, and we take kids who are diagnosed with schwere things. They're not crazy, and they don't really have that mental illness. That's number one. Part A, we're talking about if we knew from Hashem it's mental illness, then we have a question. But most of the time it's not. They're acting mentally ill. They're out of control. Because their brain is broken from trauma, they will become addicted very easily to crazy stuff, sex addiction and shopping addiction and but that's because their brain is broken and they need it. Like we spoke about addiction today, it's only because of the pain. Take away the pain, the addiction falls away almost on its own, except for heroin in that category, which is much harder. But all the other stuff, even cocaine, even shrooms, I'm doing this a long time, and this is what we're seeing. So that's the first part. So if most of the kids that come here end up not having mental illness, so when we have a kid, al pi raiv, we have to assume that the mental illness could go away. The question, though, is what about those that have true mental illness? Now, first of all, I get calls all the time from kids and young adults that are diagnosed with mental illness that are on the derech. No, if we helped mental illness from off the derech, so why can't you help my kid as mental illness is on the derech? Well, why is it bad that they're on the derech? And I don't take those cases. Because I'm not saying that there's no such thing as mental illness. I don't know on the derech people. Maybe that's real mental illness because you don't go off the derech. I do know that from the off the derech population, it's almost always trauma and not mental illness. It looks like it, but it's not. I've done my research, I've done my experiment, but I can't go to every psych ward in the world and say, Higi azman gulaschem, everybody come home, we're going to Cancun and Aruba and Puerto Rico and we're just going to buy you stuff. But I'm not sure that it's not true. I'm not sure that we can't empty out most of the psych wards with TP. I don't know. I just can't. I never did it. But I know the off the derech that I was unfortunately forced to help people with. Unfortunately, you forced yourselves on me because I never advertised, and it just happened. And I know that very humbly, just giving advice to deal with the rebellion, not expecting to change. I've never told anybody, don't go to the psychiatrist. Don't go to the therapist. I never do that. People think I micromanage. Oh, you don't hold of this. You don't hold of everything. I'm just going to build a relationship with mom and dad, and let's see what happens. And on its own, over and over and over again, the behavior they calm down, and then all of a sudden, the crazy behavior stops, and then that's just a fact, number one. Number two, even those with true mental illness also have everything that you guys are all dealing with until the mental illness. They still have emotional illness. They still have trauma and pain and all kinds of other stuff. And all of that needs to be medicated for TP. So if we do TP on them, then hopefully in 3 years from now, when they feel like I have the greatest mother and the greatest father and they understand me and they're with me, and therefore they don't have all of the suicidal feelings and all of the craziness and they have a life to fight for, then we'll identify just the mental illness on a pretty stable person, much easier to treat. They'll get the right medication just for that without having to deal with all the other medication for treating other stuff that looks like it's there that it's not. So we're basically clearing away the rubble, getting through the smoke and mirrors, giving a support system to the child, so in 5 years from now they can get the right diagnosis and get the right medication. The only time that this question really is a question is when there's a stira. When there's something that we have to do for mental illness, which is the opposite of what we would do for TP. And in such a case, then we need tremendous yata d'shmaya. We need to look at the odds and we need to make a decision. But most of what we're doing, even if a child has true mental illness, you can buy them gifts. You can say, I love you. You can be there for them. You can take them on vacation. You can make them feel good. And even people with real mental illness especially deserve to be spoiled in luxury and in love and in fun. They have mental illness in their brain. Is that a good enough answer?